Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone, and the New Look Golden State Warriors are setting the NBA on fire right now. They're one of the hottest teams in the league and have been since they made the Jimmy Butler acquisition at the deadline. And I don't mean to say I told you so, but I told you so. I knew this was going to be a big-time trade for Golden State. When they went ahead and acquired him, I said this was a move they had to make. You can go back and look at the video where I reacted to Jimmy getting dealt there. The literal title is, the Warriors had to trade for Jimmy Butler because you've got Steph Curry. He's getting up there in age. He's the best player in your franchise history, one of the best to ever play the sport. And up until they made that acquisition, they'd done basically nothing over the last couple years to get Steph Curry legitimate help. He has been playing for multiple years now without a legitimate second option because Clay fell off and then he left. And this year they went into being like, maybe it'll be Wiggins, maybe it'll be Pods, Kuminga. That was never going to be a sustainable strategy. And sure, Jimmy's older and you're going to have to pay him a bunch of money. They extended him right away and a lot of people hated that. And yeah, that contract might be bad eventually. But in this moment, in my opinion, they owe it to Steph Curry to get him help, get him a legit second option and give him someone who can at least help him play competitive basketball. I'm not even saying you have to make all the moves in the world and mortgage your whole future to try and win one more ring, but at least give him a chance of making at least one more deep playoff run, if not multiple. And they seem to be setting themselves up for a better playoffs than even I was expecting. Over these 8 games where Jimmy has been a Golden State Warrior, the Dubs are 7-1, and that comes with the 4th best offense in the sport, the best defense in the league over that span, and the 2nd best net rating only behind Cleveland, who's undefeated over that stretch. And to no surprise, Jimmy Butler has been a big-time contributor to this hot streak. The numbers don't jump off the page a ton, 16.6 rebounds and 5 assists, and the efficiency isn't the craziest, 43.3% from the field, but the impact is absolutely felt out there on the court. Defensively, he and Draymond are a nightmare duo. They both communicate a ton as defenders. They both very high IQ. They're in the right spots. They're making sure everybody else is where they need to be. They have been the quarterbacks of, again, a defense that has been the best in the league over this 8-game span. And you could see them talking a lot. They're both pointing things out to the other guys on the squad. They're both psychopaths, so it makes sense that they're getting along and the chemistry has built up rapidly between the two of them. And then on the offensive end, something Jimmy provides that they absolutely need is rim pressure. They were not having a lot of people getting downhill and finishing at the rim before Jimmy got here, and he's done a great job of providing that to the offense, of driving and kicking out the shooters, of just getting guys in their spots. Jimmy is just a really smart, really good player, and having those types of guys makes a big time impact. Also, he's getting to the free throw line. This Dubs team has struggled to get to the line at all this season, and never mind make them. They have the worst free throw percentage in the league, and it feels like there's so many nights where they're strictly losing games because they can't hit their free throws, and that's big at the end of, clutch time when you're playing in a playoff environment, and Jimmy is going to provide a lot of that for them down the stretch of games. That is absolutely big, and of course we know that Jimmy is never like, hey, I'm gonna flip the switch right now in the regular season. He's more of a playoff guy, and I already feel like the impact has been great through his first 8 regular season games. And the biggest thing of all is that he just takes pressure off Steph Curry. Again, Steph has not played with a real second option for a few years now, and so giving him somebody that he can rely on, he knows, hey, I don't have to do absolutely everything. I can play a little bit freer. Defenses aren't honing in specifically on Steph. They know they've got to stop Jimmy too. It just makes life so much easier. And since Jimmy came into town, Steph has been absolutely insane. He's putting up 30.6 points per game, 4 boards and 5.5 dimes on 51% from the field and 42.7% from 3 over these 8 games, including an insane 56-point outing with 12 threes the other night against the Orlando Magic. It's one of the most unstoppable games I've ever seen from Steph, and a lot of the conversations this season were not that Steph was washed, but he wasn't quite the player he used to be. And since Jimmy got here, he looks like the Steph Curry that we saw in like the Olympics, that we've seen a ton over the course of the last decade plus. It's just cool to see. And I think honestly, a part of that is just that the energy has shifted by bringing in Jimmy Butler. To me, the Warriors signal to Steph that they want to help him win, that they want to try and compete. Before that, it was like they're going to be a play-in team at best. Maybe they fall out of the play-in if things don't go their way. I mean, they started the season, I think it was 12-3, and fell all the way to below 500. That is just an insane drop-off, and you could see the toll it was taking. Steph Curry was upset. He was pissed off in a lot of post-game interviews and on the court. You could tell the team's body language was bad, and I feel like by bringing in Jimmy Jimmy and making this switch, the team, not just Steph Curry, is reinvigorated. The energy has definitely shifted. I think this trade has a much larger effect than just what it does in terms of the basketball. The vibes are better with this team. It felt like they fell off a cliff, and now there is a buzz around the Golden State Warriors at the moment. And it's not just, Draymond being this amazing defender and Steph going crazy and Jimmy providing what he does, but like Brandon Podjemski has been a lot better recently. He's still not quite where I'm sure the Warriors wanted him to be. They were like, oh, could he be an all-star this season? They weren't throwing him into any trades, but he's been better. And that's honestly all I want to see from the second-year player. I just continue to progress and get to where eventually he wants to be down the line. Moses Moody is really coming into his own with more consistent minutes. Quinn Post has been a revelation for them at the big man spot, someone who kind of came out of nowhere and is suddenly a staple of the rotation. GP2 mucking things up defensively as he always does. This team has a ton of great defenders. Offensively, they get enough punch. They're just playing really good basketball. Not to mention the return of Jonathan Kuminga is still on the horizon, and that could be a big boost to the team as well. And this play has gotten them up to the 6th spot in the Western Conference, or a tie with the Clippers at that 6th spot. But ultimately, I think they will win that tie because LA is one of the hardest schedules remaining. Norman Powell is dealing with an injury right now. We know how it goes with Kawhi Leonard down the stretch of seasons and his health. And the Dubs have one of the easier ones. Also, they're just playing way better basketball than LA at the moment. So yeah, I think ultimately the Warriors are going to end up skipping over the play-in entirely. And I would not have guessed that that was going to be the case about a month ago when they were completely floundering. Now, one thing I do want to note about tough schedules, it's not been the hardest schedule for the Warriors over these 8 games where they've thrived. It was Chicago, Milwaukee, Dallas, Houston, Sacramento, Charlotte, and Orlando. That's a number of teams that are injured or teams that are just generally bad, but they are blowing them out. And you can only play who's ahead of you on the schedule, so they're taking care of business. It's not like they're scraping by these really bad teams and they're just stacking up the wins, but the basketball, the on-court product isn't super convincing. They've been getting the job done relentlessly. The most interesting stretch for them is one coming up later this season around mid-March when they play the Knicks, Denver, and Milwaukee. Denver and Milwaukee, that's a back-to-back set. That'll tell us a lot. I also think at the end of the season when they have a stretch where they play Memphis, the Lakers, Denver, and the Rockets, that's also going to show us a lot about what this Warriors team truly is. They also play the Clippers the last game of the season, which could decide a lot for seeding, even if it's not just for the 6th spot battle. It could be deciding whether the Clippers end up as like a 9 or a 10 in the play-in if they fall at 4 or a 7 or an 8, or maybe it does decide who gets the 6th seed. So that's one to keep an eye on. But yeah, I do think the Warriors are a lot better. This is not the same Dubs team, nothing close to it that we saw towards the middle portion of the season, and they could make some noise with the right playoff matchup, but I'm not, ready to make any outlandish claims about them. I've got to see what they do in those tougher stretches before I become more and more convinced. And I want to talk about playoff matchups for a moment because I think there are a number of them that are really, really interesting for this Warriors team. Assuming they end up at the 6th spot, which again seems like the most likely outcome, they would either play Denver, Memphis, or the Lakers. And you want to talk about the league's dream matchup, it's LeBron versus Steph Curry in the first round, LA versus Golden State, not to mention now Jimmy Butler and Luka Doncic are involved. That is a box office matchup if I've ever seen one, and it's the one that I hope we get. I want to see at least one more LeBron Steph Curry classic playoff battle. Luka going up against Golden State after they stopped the Mavericks from going to the finals back in 2022. Jimmy looking to go ahead and get some vengeance on the Lakers after he wasn't able to get over the hump against them in the 2020 finals. There are infinite storylines in this battle, in addition to just having the biggest names in the sport, or at least some of them. So yeah, I mean, that would be incredible. And then otherwise, we still get really good ones too, because it's Golden State versus Memphis, which is a rematch from that 2022 second round battle. Ja Morant and the Grizzlies look to try and get revenge there. Or we get Jokic versus Steph, 2 of the best offensive players ever, and Jimmy tries to get revenge on the Nuggets for losing to them in the 2023 finals. There are just so many great storylines with a Golden State Warriors playoff series for any of these matchups. Really do hope we get the Lakers one. I think that would be amazing, back and forth hoops. But yeah, just in general, the Warriors are one of the most interesting teams out west, and I'm really excited about it. Just in general, I'm happy to see Steph Curry getting the chance to play competitive basketball again. And I tweeted this out at some point, just saying that I wanted to see Steph just be able to be on a competitive team, because at this point in his career, it was just sad watching a legend, someone who's done so much for the game and for his franchise, playing on these mediocre teams. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to disagree and say, good riddance to the Golden State Warriors Warriors after the dominance they had in the mid to late 2010s. But I don't know. Steph's one of my favorite players to watch ever, and so I'm happy to see him getting the chance to compete at this level. Jimmy feels like he's kind of rejuvenated playing here with Golden State too. I think they're going to be a really fun team in the playoffs to watch. That defense is a problem, and if Steph Curry plays like Steph Curry, and especially if we see playoff Jimmy, there are a lot of teams that aren't going to want to face them in the first round or even beyond. So we'll have to wait and see on that front. But yeah, that is a tough 6 seed for any team to face off against. We'll see how it goes the rest of the season, specifically in those tough stretches. But I want to hear what y'all think about the Golden State Warriors at the moment. Do you think this team is legitimate? Do you think there's a world where Jimmy Butler, Steph Curry, and Draymond Green are raising to Larry O'Brien when we get to June? Draymond Green, I know, said at All-Star Weekend that the Warriors were going to win a title. Do you think they stand any chance? If not, tell me why. And yeah, just in general, want to hear your thoughts on this very intriguing team at the moment. It's so funny how Golden State has continuously found a way to revamp themselves over and over again. It's just like, hey, we have Steph Curry, and Draymond Green has been consistent too, and then just a billion other pieces, young, old, new star in Jimmy Butler alongside him. They had Kevin Durant at one point. They had no extra stars. Klay Thompson there for a while, no more Klay. Now it's like Moses Moody. It's just one of the craziest sustained reigns of being really good that I've ever seen in any sport ever. Never mind basketball. But yeah, I appreciate you watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. I appreciate y'all. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.